It's been nearly 2 years since Nintendo told us that there was a Fire Emblem game coming to the Switch, a game that would later be known as Fire Emblem Three Houses, the series' Switch debut. But we've gotten zilch on that game since then, so fans might be antsy for a fix while that comes out. If you fit into that category, despair no more, for a potential alternative has arrived in the meantime. Coming from developer and publisher Chucklefish, who also provided early review code, today's review will be about Wargroove. Wargroove is a story set from many different perspectives, given the fact that a lot of commander units are playable, and each of them have their own point of view in the overarching narrative. There is, however, an arc that the game immediately introduces. In the land of Aurania, the king is murdered in cold blood by a dark witch on a stormy afternoon, leaving behind his daughter Mercia, who grows up to become queen and fill the void left by her dead father. Not long after, rival forces begin to cause disarray in the land, and Mercia is thrust into the battlefield to stop their efforts and avenge her father in the process. Sounds simple? Because it is. It's not an overly deep narrative, and really, all things considered, it's quite light-hearted. The easiest way to put it, there's a playable dog, a very precious, playable dog, and it tells you everything about the game's tone right off the bat. Wargroove is a turn-based strategy game. Half of this section can be covered right now by mentioning the obvious parallels with Fire Emblem: unit movement, attack options and classes, movement affecting terrain, variable objectives, a unit whose death causes an instant loss, and an effectiveness chart are all things Fire Emblem fans can recognize and adapt to quickly. The differences are where Wargroove gets interesting. Instead of singular named units like Fire Emblem, you have one named unit and a bunch of generic red shirts in different classes. Spawning these red shirts involves capturing a barracks to produce said units, while also capturing villages to generate income to afford them, and you can spawn as many units as your budget allows. Another difference is the implementation of critical hits, based not on the almighty random number god, but positioning. For instance, pikemen land crits when standing adjacent to each other, archers land crits when they don't have to move at all, and dogs land crits in packs surrounding an opponent. The sense of strategy is amped up with changes like these, making for a game which isn't too easy, but also not hard enough that you'd want to throw your Switch at a wall. One notable aspect, which arguably does influence the difficulty, is no mid-level saves or an undo feature. When you make a move in Wargroove, you're committing to it, regardless of the consequences, which means that every decision counts. The absence of such features may come from an understandable desire to avoid the easy alternative of save scumming, and while it does encourage critical thinking, it does make levels feel a lot longer when a mistaken move can cost you the match, and sometimes these levels can be close to an hour long. It feels like there could have been a compromise between having anti-frustration features and preventing the save scumming, such as maybe having a save file which can only be loaded once, thus providing something of a safety net that isn't necessarily exploitable, because you only get one chance to improve. Though, to be fair, not only is this not a deal breaker, but there are direct adjustments to the difficulty that you can make to mitigate any frustration, such as altering the amount of damage taken or gold generated during battle, which is a unique idea, given that most titles would settle for a general easy-to-hard modifier. Apart from the campaign, there's 3 other modes of note. Arcade mode lets you pick any unlocked commander from the campaign to use in a gauntlet of matches, like it is in fighting games. Puzzle mode generates a map and sets a condition for you to accomplish, such as killing a unit, capturing a location, things like that. It's comparable to the skill studies from Fire Emblem Heroes, just a bit more complex. But these modes arguably pale compared to what is the real ace up Wargroove's sleeve, and something that you'll probably end up spending a lot of time on: the custom content. You can make your own maps to play in, which is time consuming enough, but if you're so inclined, and have the patience for it, you can build an entire campaign scenario with side quests, cooperative play, and even your own cutscenes, which, even just on paper, is an absolutely staggering time sink for those with the imagination for it. It's pretty much Mario Maker for strategy games, and it's a wonderful feature. And just to seal the deal on how great this is, Wargroove has crossplay. It's also available on Xbox and PC, so there won't be any shortage of levels to download, levels to share, and players to beat up. In short, Wargroove is a very packed game with a robust campaign and extra modes, and then some. Just look at it. The graphical quality in Wargroove is ridiculous, especially since it's sprite-based. Everything is crisp and fluid. Units are distinguishable from one another. There's a lot of unique animation sets between the commanders, and it's an overall very pretty game, enhanced by a stable 60 frames per second performance. The music is a tad repetitive at times, but that's honestly not such a huge deal. One praiseworthy aspect of Wargroove is the specific options are given to play around with. Aside from the aforementioned campaign difficulty options, 10 languages are available to switch between at the drop of a hat. There's different health bar and zoom displays, and perhaps most notable of all, for me at least, there's a colorblind mode. Now, I'm not colorblind at all, but when a game goes the extra mile to accommodate more people, on top of already having good presentation, that's quite commendable. Now, realistically speaking, Three Houses is still a ways to go before we see it on store shelves. So if you're hungry for some strategy action, Wargroove is a very viable alternative to pass the time. And even beyond the market it's going for, Wargroove is a damn fine game in general, only held back by the fact that levels can be a bit harder than they should because of a lack of features. But that's not a deal breaker. This is a very easy recommendation. And with all that in mind, I am giving Wargroove on the Nintendo Switch a 4 out of 5. Thank you, viewers, for watching the video. Let us know what you think of the game below, should you buy it. A special thanks to Chucklefish for making the review possible, and our patrons, who help keep our site up and running. So like the video if you want to see more, and subscribe for more news straight from the source. I am Liquid12A, signing off.